If you're a business owner or an aspiring entrepreneur and you want to get the best possible leads from your paid ads campaign, today I'm going to show you exactly how. I'm going to show you how you can make great advertisements so that you can attract quality leads effortlessly. I'm also going to show you how you can improve your form and landing page so that you can have a better show-up rates. I'm then going to show you how you can nurture those leads so that you can pre-sell them before you go and meet with them. And then I'm also going to give you some sales tips at the end. So let's get into it. One of the first things you need to know is that when a business has bad profit margins, in other words, each client they get, they're not really making that much profits, then advertising won't fix a broken business. So you need to fix that first. Beyond that, I made a table here to compare some things to keep in mind. If you have a low ticket offer and you want to make an acquisition system for that, you're going to need to automate that because you can't spend time on calling all those leads if they aren't worth a lot when they convert. So that's why you need to create a system that automates things for you. So if you have a low ticket offer, you need automation. You need to focus mostly on the quality of the advertisements and the landing page because that's going to do the most of the work for you. The advertisement and the landing page are going to convert most of the lead into a client, and you might have a small sales process at the end, but really you need to automate things as much as possible. Whereas if you have a high ticket offer, you're going to need an SDR, a sales internal ISA or whatever you want to call it. You're going to need someone who can focus on appointment setting, and then you're also going to need an extensive or a qualitative sales process at least. You're still going to have to make great advertisements, but when you have a high ticket offer, you can afford to spend more time selling them because each deal is worth a lot more. So these distinctions are crucial to make because if you try to make everything work purely by advertisements on a high ticket offer, you're going to lose out on a lot of efficiency. And if you try to work on like a sales level on like a low ticket offer, then you're just going to waste your time. So keep that in mind. Another thing is if you have a digital project, you need to keep in mind that you're now dealing with international competition. Whereas if you have a local service business, the competition is not as fierce and you're just dealing with the local market. However, there's also benefits with a digital project because you have a larger total addressable market. So there's pros and cons to both. But really a digital project can be both low ticket or high tickets, and you kind of need to optimize per product that you're actually selling. Now, to give you an example of what is actually an ad and what are all the parts that go into the ads, I have this example here. So let's look at the image first, because if you're using a visual platform, that's going to be one of the most important things that draws attention. So we just have the image here. Now the headline is also going to be really important. This is the headline here. This is the headline on the creative. Usually this can be a little bit bigger than this example. It doesn't have to be, but it can. And headline is going to be one of the most important things, aside from the visuals, that you can pull their attention. Then on the actual image, on the creative, you might also have some text like we have here, like a small CTA or like some features and benefits. But usually this is not as extensive as on this specific example. And you should keep things a little bit simpler most of the time. Now, besides the creative, which is probably the most important part here, there's also other parts that go into the advertisements. For example, on Facebook, we have this thing at the bottom, which is like sort of a headline, a sub-headline that shows on Facebook specifically, and then like some sort of a CTA. And these are all things you can tweak here. And then on Facebook, there's also a section on top of the advertisements where you have room for some body copy and like a headline, depending on how you look at it. You can have like a short headline that pulls attention here, and then when you click on read more, you can make a little bit of a longer copy where you can have more time to persuade people. So this is like the structure of an advertisement, and it really all depends on how you want to structure the advertisements, but this is just an example right here. So let's look at some specifics of how we can make great advertisements. One of the most important things of having a great advertisements is having a good hook or headline. Especially in modern times where our attention spans are shorter than ever, if we can pull someone's attention, oftentimes that's going to do the most of the work because everything is just so busy and we need to get their attention in the first place, because otherwise it doesn't matter how good the rest of our advertisement is if we can't pull them in first of all. So what's important here is that we can get their attention. The more attention we can get from more people, the better. And also we need to we need to keep in mind that we need to draw the right people in and not just anything random. We need to get the right kind of attention. It needs to be relevant. Now, I want to preface this with saying that the example we gave before here, this was a static advertisement. Now, there are also like video advertisements we can make, and there's even like text advertisements we can make. The concepts are the same, but obviously the format is a little bit different. But all the concepts still apply here, right? So for the hook and the headline, how are you going to get great attention and how are you going to get the right type of attention? We do that by paying a lot of attention to the type of image we use, if we use an image or a video. And then we also can leverage a really high quality headline. How do we find a great headline? Marketers and advertisers have spent years coming up with theories for that, and it's quite an extensive process just to have like a couple of really high quality words that can pull the attention of like a specific market segment. In order to do that, we need to think a lot about the psychology of the customer, the specific offer that you're presenting to them, because you might be selling weight loss, but you want to turn that into a specific offer that's going to be attractive for a specific persona. And you really want to make sure that you understand everything about their psychology, and you want to pay a lot of attention to the messaging that you use in your headline. So, don't make something that's the first thing that comes to mind that's like really obvious and not unique. Really pay a lot of attention to what you're actually saying in those few words or that one sentence. Another thing, if you want to go a little bit deeper into that, you can look at the book Eugene Schwartz, Breakthrough Advertising, or you can look at Ogilvy. But Eugene is really a lot more technical in that, and he has some good frameworks for awareness and sophistication levels. Awareness level is basically how aware is your customer of the specific problem that he has. If he's aware of the problem, you might address the problem. If he's not aware of the problem, you might need to play that on a different headline. You might need to use different messaging for that. Or you might already have someone who knows that your product exists and what it does. So then you also need a different type of messaging for that. So it seems like really simple, just like a couple of really short, stupid words, but it can really make a lot of difference in your advertisements. Sophistication level is also something of Eugene Schwartz, and that's like how used are they to seeing advertisements. If they saw a lot of advertisements, they might become a little bit more skeptical. Whereas if your product or service hasn't been advertised that much before, you could use fairly simple messaging and still get decent results. So hook and headline is really probably the most important part of having a great advertisement. So spend a lot of time optimizing that and coming up with great hooks and headlines. Now the second part is copywriting. And copywriting is once you do have their attention and once you have their attention in a great way, now you're still going to need to persuade them, especially if you have an offer that's a little bit more higher priced. Just getting their attention is not going to be enough to sell them. So this is where you're going to have to explain your offer in detail. This is like usually where it comes here. This is where you really, again, think about the buyer psychology a lot, and you come up with a great text that reads well but is tailored to whatever the persona is going on in his life. And you really want to try to make your product or service stand out. I mean, that's fairly obvious, but I gotta say it here because otherwise you might not try to put your work into it. So lastly, it's also very important to get trust and prevent objections here. So don't write a text that screams I am an advertisement or that is kind of like cheesy just because you think it's fun to write an advertisement. No, really think about your customer, what's going on in his mind, in his life, what are his worries, and try to work with that in order to gain his trust and prevent his objections. So copywriting is probably the second most important part of making a great advertisement, especially if you have more higher ticket offers. So copywriting, this could be the actual text that literally goes in here. But if you're making a video advertisement, this could be like the scripts of the video. And this is very important. This is almost as important as the hook and the headline. So this is a little bit counterintuitive because the hook and the headline tends to be shorter, but usually it's a little bit more important than the actual longer text that we use. Now the third thing is the visuals, and the visuals tends to, especially on visual advertising, it can really make or break your advertisement. But what you need to keep in mind here is that what you show, the psychology of the visuals, is more important than having a pretty design. This is why advertisers often say that copywriting is considered more important than visual or creative design, because typically the most important visual decisions are made from the offer, from the copy, and from the message. And the people that work on the visuals often just work on tweaking things just that it looks better. But the most important part is having the right type of visuals, and that all flows from the strategy. So this is why the strategy is more important, and the visuals are determined by the strategy. So some type of visuals you can use are like founder stories. I started my business because of this reason, that reason. I wanted to help my clients in that way. And maybe I had this problem. This could be one visual format. Another one could be like a testimonial where you interview a client. You could have UGCs where you have a user talk about the products. You can have before and afters. These are all formats that can perform really well. And there's a lot more formats that you can use here. So this is the visuals. Now the last part is the media buying, and the media buying are people that have platform specific advertising knowledge. This could be Facebook, YouTube, Google, or any other platform. Each platform is a little bit different. And if you want to optimize your results on Facebook, you're going to need to know how the platform is performing at that time. You're going to need to know how you need to advertise on that platform. And it's a little bit different on YouTube. It's a little bit different on Google. It's a little bit different on TikTok. So these are all things you need to keep in mind. And I must say that while this is still important, in the recent times, we're placing a lot more emphasis on the creative part. So this is hook, copywriting, and visuals. Because the media buying is still important, but the creative part is really what usually determines most of the results. So this is everything that goes into an ad, and this is probably the most important part here. But there are also some other parts that are very important. So let's take a look at it. Now, if you want to improve your form and landing page, you're going to need to do that for a few reasons. First of all, your qualification. So if you have a great advertisement, that's going to do a lot of the work. But if you don't qualify the leads you get, you're going to get a lot of random leads, and you're going to still get a lot of low quality leads just because you need to filter them better. So that's why you need to qualify them on the form and on the landing page. what we need to do here is we need to increase buy-in for the right customers. So we say things that are going to attract the right customers and are going to repel the wrong customers, right? Because we don't want to maximize our volume of low quality leads. We want to maximize our volume of high quality leads, right? So that is why we do that. Another thing here, especially on your form, is that you can prevent objections and typical logistical obstacles. So if you find out as you're advertising that transport can be a problem, that budget can be a problem, or that any other logistical issues can be a problem, you can actually qualify them on the form so that if they don't meet those criteria, they never even get to you in the first place, which is going to save a lot of time on your end. And you can also kind of use it, especially on the landing page, but also sometimes on the form. You can prevent objections by effectively handling them before they even get to you. The second part is that you can increase show up rate. This applies to both form and landing page, but especially to landing page, because if you can pre-frame the consultation in the right way on the landing page, people are going to know what to expect. They're going to be excited for the offer, and they're going to feel like exclusivity or urgency. So then their show up rate is going to be a lot higher. What also can help is if you can include a VSL, a video sales letter on your landing page. If your client can explain the offer really well and it can explain what's going to be happening on the meeting, then it's also going to improve their buy-in and their show up rates. On a final note, if you use a calendar on the landing page, you have to be conscious of how you let people book in, because if you're too generous or if you don't frame the meeting correctly, then your show up rate is not going to be good, and you're going to spend a lot of time chasing low quality people that are not going to show up. So this is why form and landing page are very important. Next phase is the lead nurture. So what you do here, after you have a lead that actually sends their details on the form or on the landing page, now technically they are requesting your information and you need to reach out to them. So you need to send them emails and messages for confirmation of their appointments. However, if you do that manually, that can take quite a lot of efforts. And so usually what I recommend is to use CRM tools or AI chatbot tools in order to automate things. But pay attention, you need a good process here. Don't pick any random system, pick a good system. That said, manual follow-up can sometimes be effective too, but you need to pay attention that you can manage your time effectively here. Also, I need to say that if you're at this point and you're getting the leads, but you notice that all of the leads are responding poorly and you're trying to optimize your lead nurture process, probably the problem is not your lead nurture process, but it's probably a problem that existed earlier on the quality of the advertisements or the quality of the landing page. So you might need to fix that first before you need to work on your lead nurture. So keep that in mind. The second thing, if you have a high ticket offer, you need to get an SDR, an ISA or an appointment setter, because at this point, the landing page can still be an asset, but if you have a high ticket offer, you can afford to have someone chasing those leads because they are high quality work. So now you can afford to spend time chasing them for a phone call, in which case, if they can hear a real person, a real representative of the company, then that's going to do a lot more for them. That's going to give you more leverage than just to sending them some automated emails. Now, if you do that, if you have a high ticket offer and if you choose to use an appointment setter, then be aware that your goal on the phone call is to be like a mini sales agent. So this means that you explore their pain, you pitch the offer and you confirm the meeting for the closer. So it's not just about confirming the meeting the consultation they're going to have. You can also pre-sell them and act like a sales agent, so you can make the job for the closer a little bit easier. So this is the lead nurture process, and it's especially important if you have a high ticket offer. The next part is the sales process, and the most important thing here is to just have a system. Especially if you've relied on word of mouth up until now, you'll need to sharpen your tongue. A lot of marketing agencies just get you the leads and then tell you that you are responsible for the sales, which is sort of justifiable on their end because they might see themselves as just a lead generation agency. But if you're not someone who has a good sales system in place, then you could get a lot of good leads. But if you don't know how to close them, if you don't have the skills and you don't know how to close them, then you're just going to be wasting all those good leads. So you need to have a good system in place. Now, improving sales in itself is an entire topic in itself, but the most important part here is the way that you're going to get results is by asking commitment questions without leaving a bad taste for your customer. So you'll have to ask the difficult but right questions for your customer to commit to your service. Some examples here are: what is frustrating for them currently about your situation? You need to ask that or probe for that. How long have they been in that situation? What have they tried to fix that? You need to actively work with your customer. You need to be a consultant on that if you want to do good sales. Why do they feel like they need to change right now? Because they could just extend it forever and never make a decision. You need to talk about that. Otherwise, you're not going to make good sales. Have they been looking at other suppliers, other people that are offering the thing that you are offering? You need to talk about it with them. And why, among all those suppliers, would they choose to go with you? You also need to kind of play that in and see why you are the best fit for them. And you need to talk about it with them. So really, you need to be able to ask difficult questions, commitment questions that could theoretically be somewhat pushy, but you need to do that without leaving a bad taste for your customer, and you need to do that in a way where you actually help the customer. So, and you can help yourself as well, but you need to help them as well. Otherwise, they're just going to see you as a pushy, manipulative sales rep, and you want to be a sales rep that wants to get results, but you also want to be a sales rep that helps your actual clients. So this is how you're going to do that. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, feel free to check out my next video. And I hope to see you guys around. I hope this was helpful. Give me a like, subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Cheers.